Hello and welcome to today's structured conversation through Student Affairs Assessment Leaders titled A Strategic Plan for the Future of SAAL. And my name is Nicole Long. I'm Assistant Vice President, Student Experience and Belonging at the University of Delaware, and also have served as a previous chair of Student Affairs Assessment Leaders. It's really exciting to have everyone here today to learn more about this new path for the organization. Like many organizations in higher education, they've weathered quite a bit of change in the past couple of years. And so we're excited to discuss this new direction and path forward for SAAL. So on behalf of the SAAL Professional Development Committee, I would like to thank you for your participating in today's structured conversation, and an extra thank you to today's presenters. We are committed to involve, feature, and represent diverse perspectives and identities in our professional development offerings, and ultimately want to meet your professional development needs. If you want to share your perspectives, have ideas for future topics, please fill out the structured conversation form on our website. And we'll also post it into the chat for you. And we will use the chat feature throughout today's session to engage with comments, questions, and affirmations. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Let's do a quick round robin of the individuals from SAAL who are here. Tell us a little bit about who you are, how did you get involved, or why did you want to be involved in SAAL, and maybe some of the roles that you've had.
I'm happy
to start with you.
Yeah, I got you, Nicole. All right, I'm happy to start. My name is CJ Ann Heiser. I am the Director of Assessment, Marketing, and Communications at Western Michigan University. I teach American and at New England College, and I'm also a Senior Impact Advisor with Developing Capacity Coaching. For SAAL, I am the current chair, and that's a pretty exciting role because it's a pretty nuanced, dynamic time for SAAL as an organization. I had the opportunity to shadow Nicole Long for a year when she was chair, and now it's my turn. Prior to this role, I have served in multiple other roles in SAAL and have been involved with the organization since 2011, 2012. 2013, I don't remember. Joe's got me beat by 1 year. That's all I remember. And so I think I've had in that time, I started with the Professional Development Committee, and then was a member-elect for the organization. And I'm now the current chair. Was there anything else in that question you wanted me to answer, Nicole, before we pass it on to someone else?
What were you most excited about when you got involved with SAAL? What did you look forward to most?
Yeah. So I started as I kind of walked right into assessment as my profession. I didn't fall into it. I knew I wanted to do it. And so at that time, though, it really felt like there was no one around who did assessment. And I was at a really large public institution, and I was the only person in my division who did assessment full time. 10 years ago. And so I joined SAAL because it was really wonderful to not feel alone, to have a sense of community, to have people to talk through the challenges with, to have people to talk about strategies with, and also just to have people to learn from and grow from. At the time when the organization was really growing into itself, I had amazing mentors and people I really looked up to, like Gavin Henning and Darby Roberts and Ted Elling, people who were still really involved with the organization, but they were so accessible, people like Amber Garrison Duncan, and they just were really willing to give advice and help and coach a really young, new assessment professional in student affairs. And I don't think I could have gotten that anywhere else.
My guess is that others probably had a similar entrance into the organization of wanting to find community. Who else was maybe community one of your top reasons why you wanted to become involved with SAAL in a leadership role? Anyone? Kim, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Nicole, I mean, CG really put it super well. I think that's exactly some of the reason why I was interested in joining. I am at the University of Colorado Boulder. Actually, previously, I served as the director for assessment and planning for student affairs, but now I'm in a different role. But I think that what I really like is that there's like colleagues who are really caring and want to be able to answer your questions. I first, to be honest, got started just looking at the listserv. I feel like I would be like, how is this exactly what is happening in my organization? So common throughout other people's experience. And that felt really rewarding just to be able to say like, wow, I'm not the only one that's looking at sense of belonging at the time or some of the other pieces. So I also feel like I use SAAL as sort of my own version of a sounding board just to see if I was on track with what other people were experiencing at the time. So thanks, Nicole. I currently serve as the secretary right now too.
So Vince, you are a key leader in helping us have some of these professional development opportunities. You want to share a little bit about who you are and why did you get involved? And
Sure. I was thinking about who am I. I'm an old intellectual, but I started out as a really radical advocate and anarchist in student affairs years ago at Ole Miss. And we assessed everything, but we didn't call it assessment. We just kind of made sure we tracked what we did, right? And I remember there was a guy that worked in our office after years later at Washington State University who called himself Director of Residence Life for Assessment. And everybody wondered what he did in that office all by himself. So I didn't have a plan like CG did, but I am a research methodologist. So one of the things that I realized, I was subscribed to the Assess listserv because of accreditation things. And I saw a post by Joe Levy, and he says, I'm creating a massive online open course. And who's been teaching anything like this? And I said, well, I teach evaluation, but it's not that kind of evaluation. And so when I saw what he was doing, I said, I want to take that class. And so because I had gotten back-ended, come out through academics and through advanced manufacturing, and I didn't know what student affairs assessment was. I didn't know the vocabulary. I didn't know anything about what y'all were talking about or how it fit with my Kirkpatrick framework. And so it was so useful for me to take I think it was the second iteration of the MOOC and learn how to put it into vocabulary when I'm working with people who are still centered in student affairs, because at that time I was over some divisions, but I had never been in your roles. It sort of evolved while I was in a different camp, right? And so to me, it's been heartwarming to see the passion that everybody in this organization has. And it's just, I guess the first thing I was excited about was that you were creating a new professional field and that you were gung-ho and wow, there's even space for, you know, a decrepit old white dude too. And I've learned so much about centering equity into what I do because my framework for learning evaluation wasn't necessarily centered on equity. So it's been a wonderful learning opportunity for me to be involved with y'all.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that you really hit on something so important about SAAL being a learning organization. And I think to complement what you've shared, Vince, maybe Renee is a former professional development chair. Could you maybe share a little bit with us?
Yeah, so Renee Riley here, Director of Student Life Assessment and Research here at the University of Oregon in the Pacific Northwest. So why did I get involved in SAAL? Well, I was previously at a very community engaged university where in the Student Affairs Division, we were very much focused on supporting each other. It was like it takes a village mentality to support our students. Well, when I got asked to be the assessment director, the first of its kind in our division, I had no one to look to for advice, and I felt like a very lonely journey. And so being the community-oriented person I tapped right into the professional development committee. And I was kind of more of a lurker because I was so new to the profession. I was new to like being a professional. I was very young at the time, and I didn't feel like I could give any content or provide any teaching insight. So I was more of a lurker and a learner when I first got involved. And then I started working with Joe Levy, who's amazing human here on our call today, and just got so inspired to be more engaged with the professional development committee, started writing blogs, and then became one of the chairs, and then started doing this whole structured conversation thing. And I just got really excited to, be engaged in that way and learn from each other. And then, anytime I had a question, I just felt like I had, a community of support behind me in this listserv that I could tap into, or people that I knew from, the professional development committee or other meetings that I could just tap into. And so the community and network and connections were so powerful. And a lot of you, like I've been working with for years, that I've never actually met in person, but I consider you all really important people in my life, and important people to helping, be brainstorm and sounding board. And so that was the thing I was most excited about, is just the community. And like, fast forward now to 2022, looking back to 2014 when I first got involved, I'm just so excited about the level of connections I've made with the people and the humans that do this work, and just that extra validation and support to do what often feels very lonely sometimes in a challenging process.
Great, thank you. Joe or Sarah, you can duke it out. Who would like to maybe share a little bit about who you are and how you first got involved with SAAL?
I'll go because I don't see Joe talking yet. So my name is Sarah Usby. I'm currently Director of Strategic Initiatives at the Dallas Museum of Art. So I've transitioned out of higher education, but still doing very similar work. I got connected with SAAL originally in 2016, 2017. I'd worked in student life for a really long time, and had always been connected to assessment activities, using assessment in my day-to-day work, using data-driven decision-making and institutional effectiveness. And then had moved into chairing the outcomes assessment team for when I was at University of Baltimore within student affairs. And so as I was bringing that group together, I was really looking for resources, and SAAL kind of came across as a great opportunity. And I was able to take the MOOC. That was kind of my first kind of step in, and just like found it so beneficial to working in that committee to do our assessment work, and got engaged on the advancement committee initially, and then kind of have served on external relations committee. And right now I'm involved in an interim capacity as we work to implement our new strategic plan and new structure. And so I've kind of, obviously the group meant a lot to me, that as I transitioned out, I stayed connected, because I think, like Renee said, some of these folks who we've worked with for several years are still the support systems that we have for engaging in this work. So, and now Joe.
Hey, yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Joe Levy. As TG alluded, I think I'm the oldest, the longest SAAL member that's still affiliated and active with the board. So I joined fall 2012 is when I joined. And I know that because my career was a little backwards, where right out of graduate school, I went and worked for Campus Labs, now Anthology. And so I was an assessment consultant. And I heard about this up and coming group that was starting with these scrappy student affairs assessment folks that were getting together and sharing information, and that great things were happening. And I wanted so badly to be part of those great things, but they said, vendors aren't allowed, which was really unfortunate. And I have my thoughts on that, but I was super excited that then I left Campus Labs, and first thing I did when I started working at University of Chicago was I joined SAAL. I said, all right, I'm no longer working for a vendor, I work for an institution now. And yeah, have been part of the group ever since. Pretty quickly got involved in multiple committees, external relations and professional development for several years, and worked up to being the professional development chair, and had the great fortune of being part of the designing process of the open course, the MOOC that we run, and still teach and run that. We're going into our 7th year this winter. And it's been a pleasure to stay so engaged, despite the fact that my day job is way more slanted towards other things. I'm the executive director of assessment and accreditation at National Louis University in Chicago. And while I oversee and help champion and lead student affairs assessment, I'd say in order of things, probably half of my time, if not a little more, is dedicated to accreditation. And then the next big chunk is academic assessment for across our 6 colleges and gen ed, and then student affairs gets the remaining amount of my time. But because that's how I came up, that's my master's in student affairs, they certainly get still plenty of love and attention, and one of the reasons why I still stay pretty dedicated to this group in sticking true to my roots.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Joe. I was just taking some notes as I was listening to everyone of some themes and concepts that really stuck out in terms of why this engagement that you've had with SAAL has been so important. Things such as the community that's built, and it's a community that's so strong that even when you leave a position, you still kind of stay around, and that commitment is there that is really deep. And I think we see that through a lot of the longevity of some of the members of SAAL when they get involved in their roles. The fact that it's a learning organization that offers professional development and professional insights that are important, highly engaged, and even trailblazer, that this was a group that set out to do something, having a structure that most organizations probably would not be nearly as evolved as SAAL became over the years, without a typical structure that we see in many higher education associations, and still has managed to be highly productive in all the work that's happened. So I think it's still inspiring and exciting to me to hear why folks entered into SAAL. So in thinking about all of those different elements and attributes associated with what people were saying, what's new for SAAL? So what is this new SAAL 2.0 organization structure, and how can we, and I imagine we will see some of the different reasons why folks got engaged with SAAL will still be a thread within this new structure. So CG, was that something you maybe like to start leading us through, or talking what this new structure is, and what are some of the changes that you're excited about?
Sure. So I think all of the things that you said are still true about SAAL and where we're going in the future. One of the things that's been happening over the last couple of years has been that Renee has been leading our organization and our membership through a strategic planning process. And in that, we're really discovering what our members see value in from us as an organization. We're also engaging the board a lot in those conversations about what are the board needs, what does it mean to be a volunteer who works full time but can thrive in this space and have your commitment as a volunteer be reciprocal, like you feel like you're being poured into and you're giving, especially in light of the larger context around higher education right now and the conversations that are happening. That's been really an important part of the discussion for us as a board. So some of the ways in which we're shifting is that we're morphing, I guess I'll call it, we're morphing the org chart and the committees in a way that is aligned with our strategic priorities. And a big part of those strategic priorities is about centering not only the members and the volunteers, but the long-term sustainability of the organization. Over time, SAAL has grown and changed, and our original charter references as a nonprofit, but the actual legal status of nonprofit is not there. And so this is something that we know would be really meaningful for SAAL in the long run. So these are things and directions that we have been talking about as needs for organizational sustainability, and that we're actually going to come up with a plan to pursue as we proceed through the future. Something else is that we are really trying to figure out how to maximize the energy and the passion that our volunteers bring to the space across the different committees. Our committees were getting numerous and smaller, and we were losing the ability to maintain these really amazing cross sections of what we were doing, and as well as kind of we're getting further and further away from the larger scope and purpose of SAAL. And so we kind of came to the drawing board, listened to and read through all of our membership feedback, and then just said, how do we want to focus our time and our talents as a board, as a membership? What does our membership need? How do we coordinate? And how do we lean into what they're saying is a value from us? And so we're really future driven. And by that, I mean, everything about our new work structure is being shaped by the strategic plan and membership feedback and leadership experiences. We're sustainability focused, and that means that it's a meaningful reciprocal relationship for volunteers, that membership is a thriving community, and that financially and org structure wise, we're sustainable and viable for the long run. In that, we're shifting our focus a bit to be about community development and engagement work. I have my little notes here, so you're going to see me reference it so I get all the words right. Community development and engagement work, which is really about what services are we providing to the community of SAAL members. And so before, that might have been sprinkled across different committees, and instead we're centralizing all of that work in one location and giving the people who work in those spaces, the volunteers, the leaders, the opportunity to really lean into one another and think about how do we collectively provide a service to the community of SAAL. Or a community service for the community. The next is service to the community. And this is really about advancing knowledge, skills, and abilities of those who are in the community, ourselves, one another. Maybe there are experts. Well, we know there are experts in our membership. You can come educate the board on things we could be doing, right? And so it's about that, again, that reciprocal relationship, development and learning work, service to our community. And then finally, we are really well positioned, and this is a huge passion area for Vince. And I know that something like Joe has been talking about for a long time, but we're positioned to do research on and advance knowledge about the profession of student affairs assessment in the way that other bodies aren't. We have annual surveys that go out. We have surveys that go out once every 3 years. And that really helps us understand the landscape of student affairs as a profession. We have the journal, we've got the podcast, we have all these mechanisms for engaging with audiences, for conducting and sharing research to shape the practice of student affairs assessment. And again, that idea was kind of sprinkled across committees. And we said, well, what would happen if we put all the humans who are really passionate about research about the profession and on the profession in a room together? And so we've restructured in that way to allow all the people who have the same passions, rather than being spread across multiple committees, to be all together in the same room, putting their brilliant minds together about what kind of critical questions we could ask and research and share our findings on for the profession. That's kind of how the committee structures have changed, but our positions on the leadership are going to evolve to mirror that committee structure. So those same kind of commitments. We'll also be making some additions, like somebody who's really focused on communication across all venues and across all the committees. Somebody who is focused on the financial viability of the organization. That's something new for us. So if you've got your bachelor's degree in nonprofit management and you're wondering how you might be involved in SAAL, boy, have I got some ideas for you. Vince is cracking up. So I will stop talking now. That's kind of the technicality of it, but everyone that you're looking at who is on the panel today helped literally put their heart and sweat equity into this. And so I'm gonna stop talking, because there's probably a lot that I'm missing, and I know these humans will contribute more.
So I have a question. This is a lot of change. This is really significant. What is the most exciting thing about this new change? And for anyone on the panel can answer that. Like, what are you most looking forward to as a result of this new structure?
I'm happy to kick that off. I think, one of the things that really helped bring us to, and that we've talked about a lot, even in the strategic planning process, and helped us realize that a strategic planning process was needed, is it's the evolution of the organization. We benefited greatly from the people who've come before us, and the titans of assessment who have done such great work, and even in starting the organization and bringing people together and drawing interest and we have grown exponentially, not only in people, but also in what we offer. But I feel like we've been in startup mode for a long time, and we've already started. So we need to really shift into running this organization and elevating it to the next level, because we no longer have to be in startup mode. We no longer have to get our name out there or recruit people or put things into the sphere of resources, because we already are a wealth of resource. And so what's exciting is that we're shifting from, we were already having some pain points of trying to maintain what we were with the way we were operating now. And that was causing some stress for us, and also just genuine confusion of, okay, well, where does this initiative go? Because by bylaws, it might go here, or but then these people are, and the energy is kind of, the momentum's over there. So it's been so refreshing and exciting to go through this process of strategic planning and revisioning both what we're already doing, but where we're going. And I know, just for me, and I'm sure for others, it's just very refreshing and exciting to see the evolution and to be part of it.
Great. And I see the word Titans in the chat, like lots of finger snaps definitely for just that term. And I definitely feel like, in being involved with SAAL, that I've been able to be in the company of Titans, and definitely folks who are expert at what they do and so excited and willing to, I think, serve this community of student affairs assessment professionals is something that's just really rewarding to be a part of. Other things that folks are looking forward to. Oh, yeah, CG.
Oh,
Can
sorry.
I just want to build on something that Joe said, that it's a part of the evolution of the organization. Part of our evolution too, and Joe referenced this, I did not mention this in my time with SAAL, but the first time I heard about SAAL, someone came up to me at a conference and was like, "You do assessment, right?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm a coordinator for assessment in housing." And they were like, "Oh, never mind." And it was because at that time, SAAL was about like, right? Like, oh, cringe, it's a little cringeworthy, but I was like, okay, bye, with my like 10-year-old self. So at the time when SAAL started, it was really about like people who did division-wide assessment. And it has evolved to be like people who are doing assessment as a portion of their roles in student affairs, people who are faculty teaching in higher ed programs who teach assessment. And so one other evolution that we're entertaining as a board is the ed tech industry has grown tenfold, and how they work with, like Joe referenced, with Campus Labs back in the day, Student Voice before that, Anthology now. And we have partners in that space who are like, "Hey, we would love to support your podcast. We'd love to talk to you about your research that you're doing. We'd love to talk to you about your membership research that you do and your profile for membership." And so we've always sort of kept them at arm's length of like, no, we don't do that here. We don't, sorry, pass. And so one of the things is like, well, what would it mean to have partners in ed tech who have the same values as us, who care about the intersections of data as a way to advance equity and inclusion, who care about thriving communities of practitioners? What would that mean? What would that look like? What shape could that take? And so those are things that we are newer conversations with us. We're really entertaining them now in ways that we never entertained before. I just wanted to add, it's kind of a thread that has been dropped a couple of spaces, but I wanted to add that as part of the evolution.
I wanted to add a little bit too, and it's not exactly what CG said, so I don't want to say great minds and lower her out of her Titan status with equal to me. However, the field also is what I'm excited about, because it's sort of wedged between what they were saying. Student affairs assessment itself as a field has sort of been dwarfed by that tech renaissance, or whatever we want to call it, the hypersonic speed of technological development. We have the people, anecdotally, the people that I'm talking to have taken on so much more, and student affairs assessment is not a core position everywhere. And so I think the field has not evolved in status as much as it could. And I think with a more nimble structure, with people who are actively in the profession, who understand what this can do, this opportunity, that excites me about seeing that generation of people who are morphing the field itself right now. Make it what you want it, and then legitimize it, right? That's what excites me, because I think this is a really good time and a good opportunity to put more oomph in that also.
Thanks so much, Vince. I do want to take note that we have someone else joining us, Heather, who has been actively engaged in SAAL. And if you take a moment just to introduce yourself. So
I am so sorry to be late, but I feel like if any group of people will understand, sometimes when your VC calls, you are in the meeting and that runs late. So I am late for that today. I'm really glad to be here. I am Heather Strine Patterson. I'm the Director of Student Affairs Assessment at Appalachian State University. And I am the editor for the Journal of Student Affairs Inquiry with SAAL. Yeah, so that's me. Thanks.
Thanks, Heather. And we're glad that you're able to join us. Other things that folks are excited about.
I would just, to build off of Vince's point, now's also an interesting time for student affairs assessment, while, not to discredit the hard work people have been doing for, years, decades in some instances, but more and more accreditors have been citing institutions for lack of or insufficient or non-sustainable assessment practices for co-curricular and student affairs services, student affairs areas. So, while again, we don't necessarily want to entangle assessment work with a compliance mindset, or that we're only doing it because we're externally being held to this, there is great power and momentum and institutional attention that goes to what your accreditor asks for. And I bring that up because, again, more and more the past couple of years, and it's going to continue, the increased pressure of looking for effectiveness and looking for impact and allocation of resources, not only in general, but also where we know there's inequities and where we know students need more personalized, identity-specific resources, and how we know now, decades of literature, that, again, more of the field is beginning to recognize that people, move through the world differently and need different services, and one-size-fits-all approaches and aggregate results are not getting it done. Moreover, things like satisfaction, quality, and attendance are not cutting it in terms of effectiveness measures and how we allocate resources. So more and more institutions who maybe have been sleeping on this work, or it's now their time in their 10-year accreditation cycle, are realizing they need to pay attention and do more work here. So it's an especially exciting time that more people, maybe not for the best reasons, but we welcome them anyway, are coming forward and raising their hands and saying, we need to get involved in this work, and we need resources, and we need help. And the great thing about SAAL is that we've always had this reputation of giving and being excited to embrace people and offer support however we can. So we're getting some new blood and new membership and new folks who are wanting to engage, and that's exciting. It's also then fun to position folks who've been doing the work and share their experience. And even folks who maybe feel like they're in the nascent stages, I guarantee there's some other institution that's out there that's even earlier in the process than you are. So if you're here, you're a step ahead of somebody who's going to be here in a month or a year from now. So it's an exciting time as a member or as someone engaged in this work.
And I'll just jump in here. I'm just really excited because a lot of us have been doing this work for so long with SAAL, and it's a full volunteer experience. And for those of you who know me, I'm super passionate about personal well-being, employee well-being. And as you all know, the transition of the last couple of years has really thrown us all on our head, and it's been chaotic, and we've all been under-resourced and overworked and just overly exhausted. And so I'm also excited about this new organizational structure, not to burn out our volunteers who are doing this work, because a lot of people I know don't sign up to do volunteer opportunities because it is very taxing and it takes a lot. And being mindful of that in this new structure is going to account for that in a lot better fashion than I think our previous organizational structure. Instead of like, 2 or 3 people doing this massive undertaking, it's going to be much more community focused. And I'm just really excited about that, because I think that that is going to pique my interest a little bit more in staying involved long term. And I think it's going to help other folks, instead of like, this is too much, I can't do this right now, I have too much on my plate. I think it's going to be a lot more inviting and open and inclusive to folks who have a lot on their plate. So I'm really excited about that aspect of it.
And how do y'all think that the new structure and action teams priorities are in alignment with just where you see even the future of student affairs assessment? Sorry, that was off script, so.
I'll speak to that, Nicole. I think, and I say this as someone who stepped out of that space in higher ed, but I do see how we were very intentional in Renee leading us through this process to think about this concept of service for the community, service to the community. And in the chat, some folks have talked about the research on assessment. We think about the field of student affairs as fairly young as a profession, but like student affairs assessment practitioners is an even younger profession. And so it evolves quickly, and notably as we talked about going through technical, evolutions, and we have access to data in ways that we haven't had. And so I think that we've been really intentional in thinking about how the work of the organization is impacted by the field and how we're going to start to, we had to shift to continue to meet those needs. And I think Renee did a great job of getting us on the same page about what that looked like and how we not only were going to serve our community, but how do we continue to be relevant to the field of higher education as a whole? And I think the other important piece of this is thinking about SAAL as a organization is young. And so I think part of that excitement around this is like, we're going into that next phase, right? We're not the established, when you think about the NODAs and the NACAs and the other organizations that are focused around those functional areas, they're pretty well established, right? And so I think that brings us into that next phase of like, we can be innovative and we can be flexible. And this was the time for us to do it. And I think that just reflects that we're able to move more quickly, and that's a reflection of the world around us right now. So I think those are strengths that we bring in that capacity.
Great. I think it's so important. I think even as assessment professionals, like the folks in this group I think to me, it really demonstrates what we are probably doing in our everyday jobs and really applying it to the organization of, doing the information gathering, really thinking about what is on the horizon in the field. How are we actually still making a place for ourselves in the future? So I think that's, has been a really neat thing to see unfold throughout the strategic planning process. So a slight departure. So how would you encourage, or what are ways that a SAAL member who maybe isn't in a leadership role can support the mission of SAAL, this momentum moving forward in terms of SAAL's future?
I can jump on that really fast. We are currently doing a needs assessment. We have 13 people for panel sessions set up already for the next 3 or 4 weeks. And when we get done with that, we're going to have a questionnaire that we send out to this listserv. And I want everybody on here to complete it and send it to 5 people because that's going to give us current data to say, okay, for the people who are coming in for the leadership, here's what they said they need. So please participate in that. If you've seen that link, we've been trying to give you some forewarning, right? And so it's going to come very soon, and throughout November, please respond.
Other ways to engage and support the mission of creating a robust, active, and inclusive community, supported or committed to supporting and advancing student affairs assessment.
I feel like, Nicole, this might sound slightly trite, but actually like just ask questions on the listserv. Like, I think that's something that we all can do, but I would add that if you ask a question, you should also be prepared to respond to questions, right? Like we all get better and better and have even more efficient and effective practices the more that we hear from our colleagues and from others. So I would actually love to say, continue to ask questions on the listserv and help us get those questions out there so we know what's kind of happening for folks doing this work, but then also continue to help us respond to people's inquiries, because I think that that's where so much of the value continues to come in.
I'll add, so we've got Vince, who's like right in the details of like, tell us what your needs are so we can structure for the year to come, right? And I've got Kim, who's like, just be a good community member, right? Like engage, facilitate conversation, answer good questions. We know you're all brilliant. And so I'm just gonna go like right straight to like the top of the skyscraper and say, join us, join the people on this call, become a member somewhere. Right? You can be a journal article reviewer. You can take the course. You can join one of the newly formed committees and help lay the structure and foundation for the people who are going to come after you. You can nominate yourself or others to be a leader in the organization. We're all feeling it out together. We have lots of members who've been leaders and all they did before they were leaders was lurk on the listserv, and it's fine. Like they find themselves and they find community in the board. We don't expect that anybody is coming to the table with a wealth of knowledge and experience. When they do, it's like an added bonus. So I would say don't be afraid to get involved. If you are someone who wants or takes pride or a sense of purpose in helping to structure and create the next evolution of something, this is your time to shine for SAAL. Because that is what we are doing. We are reshaping all of our relationships with one another, with other organizations, with companies. We are shaping how we will work going forward. We are shaping what it means to be a healthy, whole volunteer who's a community member who's poured into as much as they're pouring out. We haven't gotten it all figured out. We need a lot of help to figure out what that kind of end of the rainbow looks like. We're not there yet, and we're building it as we go. So we would love you to join us. Or if you are sitting here and you're thinking of like these three humans that would be absolutely incredible, we would love to know their names. We're happy to reach out to them and tell them that they've been nominated. I'm going to drop in the chat a link to a forum for kind of all the things that you've heard us talk about in terms of the committees and the membership and kind of what like where our structure is going. So if you just have like a high level interest, you can share that interest there. But also we will be releasing a call for nominations soon out on the listserv and through all of our social media platforms. So please stay tuned. That's my way you can get engaged all the way to the top.
Yeah, there's so many. And I think that's one of the things I really appreciated with SAAL over the years is there's so many ways to enter into the organization, depending upon your availability. You could, like as CG said, write for the blog. You could offer to come up with conceptualize new ideas for a structured conversation. I think we all have some sort of talent that we can lend to the organization. So other ideas for how folks can engage to support the SAAL mission moving forward.
I would just say kind of blending Kim and CG's points that one of the things we're trying to accommodate for as we go forward is what could be short-term engagement, because we know that times are busy and sometimes free time is unpredictable. And when you think you're going to have free time, it's not going to be there. So when people have these pockets or seasonality of the work that's a little open or down, we're trying to make it so that if you want to contribute, if you want to engage, if you want to participate in something, that you can, and that there's ways and we can get you connected to people who can plug you into something right now, who can also introduce you to some new projects, get you involved if possible in some ongoing work that you can kind of sub in and sub out. But more than anything, I think it's a validation that we want to provide and put out there for people that whoever you are, your perspective matters, and you can add value to whatever we are doing. I think, historically, perhaps with the commitment potentially of like a year-long engagement with something, or people with titles that folks might have been intimidated by that, or might have thought that, who are they to step into the space with other individuals? But whoever you are, we can benefit from your perspective, especially if you're a new person, because you can help, to Vince's point, you can help tell us like what you need to know. And you're looking at our materials and you say, these are the things you don't have. And then that's direction we need to help provide more things for people like you. And then if you're a mid-level person or someone who's been around, again, all perspectives are going to matter. And we never are going to have enough resources or institutional examples or case studies. So I think the biggest thing is that, we want this to be a collaborative, thriving community that is helping one another and helping even folks who maybe aren't formally associated with or involved with our organization.
So y'all have shared some different ways to get involved. What are some of the greatest benefits of being involved in some of the things that you named?
I love the people that I have met through this organization, and like even in this space, and kind of in the chat, even seeing Jackie out there. There's been a lot of times, I'll be honest, in the last 2 years, I probably should have quit and I probably should have stopped because of the things that we talked about earlier with life and COVID, and I've got 2 really small kids. But the people that I have met in this organization help fill my cup, and they help make me feel like I'm not alone in this work, because it can be pretty isolating on campus. And that is the reason I haven't yet quit or kind of stopped, because of the relationships with people has been the best part for me.
Great, thanks, Heather. Other benefits?
I'll just kind of jump in, and obviously I'll echo, like, it's just the people. These humans are amazing. But again, I've learned so much. I've been challenged. I've learned a lot of new ways to run different organizations. And even in my leadership experience, I just feel like I'm constantly learning from SAAL and what we have to offer. And just even from the structured conversations, like being like the coordinator for years, like just being able to reach out to folks, people that I've never met, and like connect with them. It's building my network. And to me, that's just really powerful, because I don't know everything. And it's just so powerful when I meet with any of these wonderful people on this call. They'll connect me to something maybe I hadn't heard of, or an article that I hadn't read, or knowledge about a new book, or just a new thought option. And to me, that diversity of experience is so powerful for me as being a first generation student, and like the first of my family to work in a profession like this is just really powerful for me, because I feel like I'm constantly learning. Even though I've been doing this work for 15 years, I feel like I'm always learning and growing, even just from the human interactions. And I kind of posted in the chat here, and kind of echoing what Joe had mentioned, like, we don't need someone to commit to this long-term commitment, but even just having ideas on what kind of structure conversation topics people need. Our field has evolved so much, even just in the last few years. Like, the needs have changed. And that's why I think it's so important to participate in Vince's research and this NGT panel, is so we can understand what today folks who are focusing on student affairs assessment need versus like a couple of years ago. Because I'm always thinking about who to invite for a structured conversation and the different topics. And I'm going off of, my ideas, but I'm one person. So I would love even just like an email to say like, hey, you all should invite this person on this specific topic, or hey, I would love to be a guest blog writer for this one blog focusing on equity and assessment or data equity frameworks or the quant crypt movement or whatever, endless topics. So I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for that level of involvement. And again, just to kind of echo CG's, don't be afraid to get engaged. I learned so much from everyone, even people who haven't been doing this specific work as long as me. I learn every day from everyone. And so to me, it's even just a powerful experience just to interact with the other humans.
Can I actually do another shout out? Sorry, this is not your thing, but was something, Renee, that you just made me think of. If anybody here is an APA wonk and wants to do some editing, please let me know and reach out to me, because that's a way you can get involved tomorrow if you would like to. On a very short-term basis, I could use some help. So sorry, I just thought of that.
No, I love it. I mean, I love really practical ways that folks can lend their talents. That would not be me. So, but yeah, there are people that love APA and all the editing and so forth. Other benefits that you're like, I got to share this. This is, a must, like of why you must do this.
I think somewhat a selfish one for anyone who wants to embrace that side of themselves is it leads to really cool opportunities. Through SAAL, I have partnered with people to do presentations, to do articles, to write book chapters, to be part of research that I knew nothing about. That's a hat tip to Vince, where I'm just happy to be part of the group, but to be introduced to things that you didn't even know was a thing, just because you asked a question or because you were involved with something and somebody else likewise asked a question and you found this common interest or this time and space where you said, hey, let's just do something or let's collaborate on this. And I attract a lot of and field a lot of random requests of interest with the open course. And I tell people all the time, so I'll tell folks here too, like we could always use people to do more with the data. We could always use more people to even just look over the course materials. Because at this point, having taught it for 6 years, like I know it forwards and backwards, but we always need to be evolving it and adding more newer resources. And so new perspectives are so appreciated. And that's it can be such a short time commitment or a long time commitment. Vince has been helping with the data for a couple of years now. And that's just me. And then I always say, like, and if you reached out about the course, but in hearing about SAAL, you want to get involved in other stuff, like I can put you in touch with other people. And so I think, going back to, Vicky's comment, in absence, if we're not being as transparent or upfront about where there are potentially short-term opportunities, don't be shy in asking. And we'd love that candor or to know, like, hey, I have this much time, like how can I get involved or give back, and we can try and plug you in, because we got all sorts of stuff that we could use help with and could benefit from new perspectives. But yeah, from a selfish perspective, if you're looking to move up in your career and you want to build your CV and your resume, this is a great way to do it, because we're always, looking for blog writers. We're looking for, journal editors. We're looking for presenters, and then whatever you're doing here can, lead to a future presentation, publication, so forth and so on.
Yeah, that's such a great point. In terms of SAAL really creating or opening up a door for you to access just not only the other individuals in the organization, but even some of the partner organizations with SAAL as well that you may not typically have even thought about connecting with. I think about Council for the Advancement of Standards for me became something that I wasn't really overly and I mean, I knew what CAS was, but I wasn't really involved in it. But through SAAL, was able to have that door opened. We're coming up on time. If there are any questions from the participants, feel free to put them into the chat. And I just had a question in hearing about taking your career to next level, and it made me think about the whole pipeline. So where do you see a budding student affairs professional, maybe someone who is a graduate student, how might they enter into SAAL, or how can they use SAAL to learn more about how to become a student affairs assessment professional? I mean, most of us don't say when we're kids growing up, we want to be a student affairs professional, let alone a student affairs assessment professional. So where do you see the organization and helping with that pipeline?
I'll hop in really quickly just because my experience was that I didn't start in assessment. I started in student life, but I always enjoyed it. Like I always wanted to do assessment and just didn't have the experience. And when I was in the field, really full-time student affairs practitioners were very, very new, right? The concept of that was pretty new. And so I think now that it's more solidified, I think being able to talk about what are the pathways into it. So many of us came from practitioner background roles and other capacities. And so I think that pathway into the work has changed now. And so I think letting folks know that that's out there. And so if you're a new budding professional and you're interested in data analysis or other pieces, just that those opportunities even exist. And I think SAAL communicating about that and being able to identify pathways into those director of student affairs roles, student affairs assessment roles, that before folks, that there's so many more of them now, that they are a thing, whereas before there were just a handful. So
great. Any other thoughts on that?
I would just offer like not to promote like leaving student affairs, but student affairs assessment can also be an avenue into other parts of the university. So again, I got my master's in student affairs. I was pretty determined and assumed I was going to work in student affairs the rest of my career. But because assessment is pretty universal and has common components, whether it's student affairs or academic, I really backdoored my way into academia and landed this director of institutional assessment position. And then since then acquired and gained accreditation experience. And now I'm responsible for that. And I mean, and CG's picked up marketing. Like, so assessment can also position you in a way that you can then just gain access to other parts of the university. So it's not so much a tip about getting into assessment, but then once you're in it, how it can open new doors for you.
Great.
I would add that, like, because of the work I've done with SAAL, and the connections I've made here, when I speak in my authority as an assessment practitioner at my institution, people listen. And it doesn't matter where they're positioned around the institution. I am in student affairs, but the number of people who will come to me for questions, for advice about program review, strategic planning, effectiveness, assessment, the assessment cycle, data storytelling, data viz, like all of it, like I speak in my authority, and when I don't have the answer, I have a whole community on my back that I can be like, what do y'all do when this happens? And I've never not gotten an answer, ever, like ever. Like before my office was merged, assessment, marketing, communications, I put a call out to the listserv, like, who's done this? What are the pros and cons? And it was funny because everybody thought it was a good idea privately messaged me. Everybody who thought it was a bad idea sent it to the whole listserv. So maybe a case study to be done there. But I got like 12 responses of like really thoughtful answers, like paragraphs. So I think that I walk in a different kind of authority and comfortability in my knowledge and expertise because I have been emboldened and educated by so many, by this village of practitioners who had already navigated battles I was fighting or who hadn't, but had great ideas for how to do it. There's literally nowhere else I would have gotten that. I feel like anywhere else that's like assessment focused, I kind of have to like scrap my way in through the front door. And part of the goal for today was to make sure that nobody feels that way about SAAL, that you realize that there's a whole house full of doors. And then any of them leads to the, Harry Potter room of requirement of opportunities for engagement with the organization. I really think if you're just interested in anything, we'll find a way to connect you because that's what other people did for us.
Well, that's a wonderful note to end on. And to just end on the community again, that and how special of a community SAAL is. We look forward to seeing everyone's continued engagement in SAAL as an organization. And so you've heard about so many different opportunities to be engaged, and definitely encourage your colleagues as well to be engaged in the organization. So we'll go ahead and wrap up today. Thank you for your participation. The recording